I want to welcome everyone to our Committee of the Whole meeting. This is the Duluth Public Schools ISD 709. It is Tuesday, February 6th, and we are here for our Committee of the Whole meeting. This is a meeting where the school board listens to presentations of programs and initiatives and things that are going on in our district. It is a time where the school board does not vote on any issue or any action. And it's also, it sometimes does set us up for a vote we might be coming up, whether that is a curriculum presentation or a budget presentation. Sometimes at the Committee of the Whole, the presentations are directly related to something that's coming in the next month or two to the school board for a vote. Not always, but often. And so again, this is the Committee of the Whole. I'll turn it over to Clerk Zadowski, who will take roll.
Member Williams.
Here.
I am here. Member Mikesell.
Present.
Member Lofeld.
Here.
Member Loeffler-Kemp.
Here.
Member Dirk-Eater.
Here.
And Member Banks.
Here.
Superintendent Magus.
Here.
Assistant Superintendent Bonds.
Present.
And let's see here. Secretary Shannon. And then our student reps, Damon Ritzko. Here. From the ALC, and then Larissa Miller from Denfeld. And Mia Petronas from East.
Here.
Perfect, thanks.
Thank you. And just as a reminder too, that when we are a Committee of the Whole meeting, it's important to have 4 board members present. And there are times when there is conflicts in our schedules, but we have to have a quorum to go forward. And we've been blessed with, really an ability to have the majority of our board members always present at our Committee of the Whole meeting. If you look at our agenda, we have 4 presentations tonight, so I turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Bonds as we work for going through the presentations tonight.
Thank you, Chair Lofo, and good evening, everyone. We have a robust agenda, so I'm going to call up Jen Larver and Dale Usman. They will be providing some information related to. You ready?
John going first?
I was just following the agenda. There's.
The phone is ringing over at the front desk. Okay. I think John's going first.
John, I understand now you're going to go first. Is that correct, Superintendent Mackes?
I'm sure glad to go first. Thank
Okay.
you.
We will have a change in order of the agenda, and so we will start off with Superintendent Mackes, who will provide a mid-year state of the district.
If you could give me just 1 minute to pull it up. Cast. Here we are. And again, the idea of this this mid-year state of the district is just to provide an overview of what we've been working on, just kind of a higher level overview of some of the main priorities of the district so that the board can have a sense of where we're at. Also considering we have new student reps as well as some new members, it provides some context and allows us to move forward. Glad to provide more robust information in the future, but this is just meant as a high-level overview of some of the things we've been working on as a reminder and refresher. So, some of the topics we'll talk about: our mission, vision, and values, our strategic roadmap efforts, our school board action plan, a little bit on our high-level action card overview, as well as our overview of progress monitoring, what we've done for progress monitoring this year thus far, the goals that you had set for me for this year, and then opportunity for any questions. So again, we set our mission and value last year with our strategic planning process. We engaged in a 2-year process with the community. And our mission is every student every day will be empowered with learning opportunities for growth, creativity, and curiosity in preparation for their future in the global community. And our vision is Duluth Public Schools provides an academically engaging, safe, and inclusive environment with high expectation and responsible use of resources. We also have a set of core values, and our core values are learning, excellence, equity, collaboration, and belonging. And these really root us in what we do as a district. Our strategic roadmap efforts, these are things that we've worked on. We have, this year we did quite a bit. In fact, August was a very busy time for us. On August 3rd, the board had a work session, and we put together the progress monitoring calendar, which I'll click on in a few minutes. We have information on our 3-year operational plan, which is how we're going to achieve what we say we're going to do. And then many of you have seen the strategic roadmap, which is outlined there in a link that you can see through the report. But you've seen copies of this plan previously. But basically, this is what we're working on. The review and refreshed school board action plan, we had a work session just a few weeks ago when we updated that plan. And so there's information there as well. Basically, it outlines, and with the casting, I need to switch sources here. And it did not let me. So I am having some casting issues here. This is a Chromebook that I don't normally use, so I apologize. But the school board action plan, you've seen it before. It lays out what we did last year, what we're doing next year. Talks about the different areas that we focus on. It breaks it down into categories of district policy, operational oversight, self-governance, superintendent relations, as well as public engagement. And so those are the different areas that it focuses on. And you've heard much of this before. We have our main action cards under our 3 strategic areas. Our 3 strategic areas as a school district are supporting every student, advancing equity, and improving systems. And so under supporting every student, we're focusing on multi-tiered systems of support. Multi-tiered systems of support, if you think about them as safety nets for students, basically it's what do we do for everybody universally? And then if people struggle with their academics or their behavior, what is it that we do when you first start to struggle, and what is it that we do as you continue to struggle, if that's the case, or struggle more significantly? The same for behavior. So those are really the main things that we focus on. They're very all-encompassing as far as what do we do universally for curriculum. When I think about what we've done for MTSS academics this year, I'm really, really impressed. We were able to keep our reading and math interventionists and other interventionists that we have, as well as keep our multi-tiered systems of support specialist positions through that referendum work that we did. We also have worked really hard. When we think about MTSS, it's not just how do we do intervention, but we've also worked really hard to make sure that our universal offerings for students are the best they can be. And we have a new elementary plan in place, and we're soon to be putting in a middle school and very likely a high school plan for next year. So we will have revamped education from kindergarten through graduation, and I think that's really impressive work. We've also done quite a bit with advancing equity, and you heard from Nate Smith, who has shared quite a bit, and we'll be sharing more during one of our sessions today, talking about the committees that we have through EAC. But you've seen the education equity framework that has been shared and that had previously been adopted by the board. We've been working really hard on that. Nate has things to share as far as what he's done to really re-enliven the committee work, and I think that's been very impressive. We also have been working really hard, and this is not all-encompassing, but thinking about the things we've done to improve systems, thinking about what are we doing related to building capacity, what are we doing with business services when we think about the budget forecasting software programs that Simone Zunich, our Executive Director for Business Services, has put in place. We think about recruiting and onboarding. Remembering that this year was the first year in many years that we had all of our certified employees hired, all of the positions filled when the school year began. That did not happen by accident. It happened through hard work and really focusing on systemic improvement. And then I also know that we talk about what are we doing with onboarding. We have new onboarding plans for our principals. We're doing more to support onboarding and mentoring for our teachers. And then also when we think about recruiting, we think about grow your own efforts. We've always had some grow your own efforts, but this year we worked really hard with a partnership with College of St. Scholastica and just recently submitted a very extensive grant. And thanks to Executive Director Teresa Severance and Denate Smith for their work on that. Hopefully that will bear fruit as far as grant money and be able to move forward. But those are some of the main areas, the main focus areas of those action cards. But really, we also talk about what are we doing with progress monitoring. And we have a progress monitoring calendar, and I'm going to cast that here a second. If my computer cooperates with me, which it is not. One sec. Okay, here we go. Sorry, it's a little slower. See, we really need a technology referendum so we can update and replace some of our devices, amongst other things. So our progress monitoring calendar focuses on monthly reports to the school district, and this is what we've been focusing on. It really focuses on those three areas of supporting every student, advancing equity, and improving systems. So really, this is kind of the mechanics of what happens behind those main strategic directions. And some of the things that we focused on related to what are we doing to support every student, what are we doing to advance equity, and how are we improving systems. And you see we've done quite a bit as you go through the list to this month, where we're talking about our State of the District mid-year review. Career CTE pathways, because we are doing the CTE showcase at the regular school board meeting. Principal Sebo had asked that we move the showcase and also asked that we allow her to do the CTE presentation at that meeting because it fits really well rather than have everybody come twice. So that's what will be taking place on February 29th. We also have, as I mentioned before, Nate Smith will be sharing about our Education Equity Committee updates, and Shalon Monroe, sorry, I always say Malone, but and Adele Wellens will be sharing on our family engagement plan. So this is what we do to make sure that we are monitoring the things we say we're going to do. They say the road to hell is paved with good intention, and I think every district has intention of focusing on these things, but it's really the accountability that we need to make sure it's supportive accountability to make sure that we're accomplishing what we say we're going to do. So that shares a little bit about that. I'm going to pull back into my slides here a second. And it's very, very slow. There we go. I should have taken you up on your offer to present or to cast. So the things we focused on related to supporting every student, we had a report on our kindergarten task force and a summary of our first test results back in September. We also had a middle school model and achievement update and conversations about our school improvement planning process. We there's a lot of acronyms in education, but we had a multi-tiered systems to support social, emotional, behavioral update where we talked about what are we doing for PBIS, which is also another acronym, Positive Behavior Interventions and Supports. Basically, what are we doing related to behavioral support and social, emotional support in our schools. We also had a very extensive report on the World's Best Workforce report with all of our data related to where we're performing as a school district. We had a special education update a few months ago, And then this month, or last month, and then this month, we'll be having our CTE, college, or career and technical education pathways piece. Related to advancing equity, we've been working very hard on tribal consultation and concurrence, non-concurrence. We have a new coordinator for American Indian Education, Jennifer Garbo, correct? Who has been working with us on the tribal consultation, as well as making sure that our concurrence and non-concurrence efforts are more than just an empty effort. It seems in previous years, oftentimes we'd overpromise and underdeliver on what we said, and we want to make sure that we're holding true and meeting frequently with our tribal partners, as well as with our American Indian parent groups. We've also been focusing on our plan for 2023 Educational Equity Framework, as I mentioned. Our Instructional Leadership Academy, which is working through with the Center for Educational Leadership on how are we making sure that our principals are the strongest and best supported instructional leaders they can be, and that they have an equity lens to the work that they've done. We also, as I mentioned, had a very extensive World's Best Workforce update, which is listed for all three areas, and today we have the committee updates. As far as improving systems, we had shared our new recruitment videos and new hiring orientation opportunities. That also sometimes they intersect. We've been having events at a wider variety of areas. We had a Juneteenth booth this year. We had things at powwows. We've really been trying to focus our efforts in not just advertising in our regular places. And then Executive Director Zunich has been having quarterly staffing meetings and budget meetings with each of our schools so that there's greater transparency and understanding on the part of our school leaders. So every single school of our 15 has met quarterly. That doesn't just include Executive Director Zunich. Usually it includes Assistant Superintendent Bonds, as well as the appropriate director, whether it's the Director of Special Education, secondary, or elementary. We've also been focusing on our facilities capacity. When we think about some of our schools that are getting tight, and to some degree, some are pretty crowded and some are under capacity, such as Lowell Elementary, and we actually were thinking that it would be good for us to share a more full report on Lowell in the near future, just because of some of the needs there and some construction efforts that we're looking at related to some expansion of the cafeteria to allow for supporting the students there. We also have presented a month or so ago on employee wellness and shared what we're doing throughout the district with wellness. In addition to that, we're going to be having a wellness fair in April that will be focused on staff wellness. And tonight, we're really looking forward to our family engagement presentation. Those are just a few ways that we focus on improving systems, but it goes far beyond what we've talked about here. I also think about what we've done with transportation this year with new software. We've revamped many systems behind the scenes. And really what we're trying to do is make sure that I look at the district service center as truly being a service center that serves our schools and provides support so that they can be the best they can be. If we are doing our job well, our schools have to worry less about what happens in human resources. They have to worry less about budget, and they have to worry less about those other processes so that they can focus on what matters most, which is instructional leadership and supporting our teachers so that they can be their best and support our students in the best way possible. And then finally, I just wanted to reiterate again, because we have our mid-year review for myself coming up on March 11th. That my 3 goals for this year were focused on school district finances with the particular element of bond and levy campaigns. So rather than just have one referendum, we thought let's have 2 this year, so that because we wondered what would happen if we finished it in November. But now it will go through a longer period, and I was really impressed with the work of our team in what they did to put together the referendum press conference earlier this week. We had all 4 news stations represented. We had multiple print journalism representation, and had very, very good coverage today of what was intended. And again, our job is not to tell people to vote yes or no, it's to get as much information out there as possible. And so that's what we're working on. When it comes to communication and community relationships, been working really closely with Adele and Shalon on the community communications, and also thinking about our visibility and approachability. And one thing that I would say is a good example of those community relationships and trying to be visible and approachable is the Unity in the Community, the second event that we held this year. It was very well attended. It was better organized than even the first one. And had it not been raining, I think that we met about the same attendance as we did the year before, even though it was raining this year. I think we probably would have had 6,000 people as opposed to 4,000. But that was one example. I'm also serving on a greater number of boards this year. I'm on the Duluth Library Foundation Board. I'm on the Chamber of Commerce Executive Board, and also the Duluth Street Art Initiative Board, which is interesting as well. So those are different ways that I'm getting involved in addition to those meetings that we have on a regular basis. We're working now on some of our community relations related to referendum information. We're looking at having something similar to education after hours, but it would be a opportunity for, rather than meeting in the community centers, to come to our schools and also have tours of our schools so that people, we've heard from, when we listen to people related to why they might not have supported the referendum the first time, one thing we heard is that people feel like the schools are a little bit closed off, that they don't feel like they're necessarily part of the community. And so they were looking for what are some more opportunities that maybe I could go see the school where I went as a kid, but I don't go there anymore, or the school that my grandmother went to. And it gives people an opportunity to really feel like the investment in our schools it's an investment of the whole community, and they really truly belong to our whole community. And so we want to make sure we do that. And then with teaching and learning, we are focusing on school improvement, which seems kind of general in some senses. But again, we worked on that stronger strategic plan as a district, and now through Mr. Bonds and as Assistant Superintendent for Teaching, Learning, and Equity and the directors, they're working on making sure that our school improvement plans are very tightly aligned with what we hope to do as a district. So those are the three areas that I've been focusing on and we've been focusing on this year. And again, this was intended just to kind of give you a high-level overview of where have we been this year, what are we focusing on, and just kind of a check-in for the middle of the year. But if you have any questions, do I see a green light coming on, or no? No? Okay. Any questions? All right. Member Banks.
Thank you. So this might be more appropriate for Mr. Smith, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Sure.
As I look at this, it says Plan for 2023-24 Educational Equity Framework. Does that include the recruiting of teachers of color, more specifically African heritage teachers? Because we don't have a single African heritage teacher in the district. Where does that fit in? Is the recruitment in that part, or is that not on there?
That is partially within the plan, but it is also through the Grow Your Own efforts that we've been doing as part of improving systems. So again, sometimes things overlap. So we put it as part of improving systems, but it definitely has a strong advancing equity portion of it as well. And I think, Mr. Smith, when you're up here, if you want to address that a little bit as well, as far as our recruiting efforts. We also want to make sure that we have retaining efforts, and so we've been working on affinity groups so that people can get together and really talk about what supports are needed and what can we do differently so that we're retaining people. People sometimes say that retaining is the new recruiting, and so really thinking about how are we keeping the people we have. But when that number is 0, that's a pretty clear number that needs to be improved.
And when we say grow your own, because we don't have anyone within the district, I mean, when I say anyone, we have very few people within the district that would qualify for the grow your own. What are we going to do outside of the district to recruit more, in this case, African heritage teachers? Are we going to go to the cities? Are we going south to those schools that have those programs of education that would be appropriate for us as a district to at least investigate? Is any of that in the plan? Because when I hear grow your own, I get a little nervous about that because we have very few African heritage people, for example, in other roles within the district that we'd like to hopefully keep them in those roles, but we need teachers.
So we have done recruiting at recruiting fairs, and I think one thing, and I would say this is based partly on previous experience in other places. A lot of times when time is invested going to recruiting fairs in other states, you might end up with one or two candidates coming forward who that can be beneficial, but then also sometimes keeping people in the community is hard because we want to make sure that it's inviting and people are well supported and well structured. That's an important element for us to consider. And sometimes I've been to recruiting fairs in other states and not gotten anybody to come, and then that seems we want to make sure that we're focusing on a variety of efforts in how we recruit and retain. We do have a number of people who are the integration specialists and paraprofessionals and people in other roles that we want to make sure that we have career pathways, not just career pathways, but really employment ladders so that people can move into other positions. I've mentioned that I started as a para and then became a teacher and then got into administration. Same thing for other members of my family have done the same. And so I think making sure that we are helping everybody in the system see themselves as potential employees, and then also thinking of our students, thinking about what student leaders do we have out there that might be interested in education and might be interested in dual credit options so that you can get some of your university credits in methods so that you can move forward. But I agree that making sure that our entire workforce should better mirror the students and families that we serve so that we can not just serve as role models, but I think it heightens the level of dialogue that we have when we have a more diverse staff. There's a better, deeper, richer conversation about how do we problem solve for kids. There's a better conversation about how are we meeting the needs of everyone, and I think it just elevates the way we serve. And I would also say that having people in leadership positions like yourself and Member Williams, to have people that are representative and serving in those leadership capacity, that too says something about our district and says something about our community, that we want to be inclusive and we want to do things to really make sure that we step out and do that. I'm not sure, Mr. Bonds, if you want to add anything else as far as with the education equity plan, as far as how that pertains to diverse hiring?
Yeah, I think you did a great job of summarizing it, and Mr. Smith can provide a little insight on some of the efforts. We have a equity action card that includes reaching out and targeting applicants of color, trying to diversify our district. We also, I think Director Severance has indicated and shared that I want to say about a month ago, we applied for a grant, a Grow Your Own grant. That grant does include the opportunities for not just district staff, but other community members who may be interested in going into teaching and pursuing teaching. There are resources that can be provided to those individuals to actually pay for some of those coursework and to support them in that programming. So Mr. Smith, again, can share a little bit of insight when he comes up later, because he was part of the application process and development. So it is a goal of the district to really diversify our district, and we are pursuing different avenues. Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? Member Miller, I'm sorry. Member, did you call someone? I'm sorry. Member Miller?
Okay, I was kind of to go off of that. I agree. That's like a big, as a student, I see that as like not comfortable in classrooms. And it's very difficult in Duluth because obviously the population is like mainly PWIs. But with that, I think that something to solve the comfortability in classrooms would be education for the teachers that are not BIPOC. I think that is something that should be brought up in the framework of this, especially being comfortable in those classrooms and not having those instances, even though they might not be the same color or like there's always going to be that barrier, but at least you feel somewhat comfortable. Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank
Representative.
you very much, Student Representative Miller. That's something that is part of our plan and something we need to focus on. With training, we think about implicit bias training for our staff. We've had some in the past, but we need more because I think everyone has biases, and it's first that you need to be aware of those biases and make sure that you're monitoring yourself and having correction. That, you know, I remember Shiraki Holly said, "Don't let your first thought be your last thought." Making sure that you're thinking openly and really changing as you move forward. So very perceptive of you to think that that should be part of the plan, and I'm grateful that it is part of the plan.
Member Sadowski?
I was going to change the subject a little bit, but I've really appreciated this discussion and all of the good questions and all the information that came out of it. One comment, I just really appreciate all the work on the systems, because that is a lot of hard work behind the scenes. And even as a parent in the district, I just saw a change over the years, over this last year compared to previous years as far as hiring those positions earlier. And I've gotten good feedback from just different teachers too and principals. It's really nice to have those positions hired, so I appreciate your hard work on that. And then as well, the budget forecasting tool has been really helpful for me, and I know other board members as well, just to, it's a really great tool to help us understand the budget. And then I had a follow-up question about the comment that you have heard about people feeling that our schools are closed off. Besides tours, are there other ways that we're trying to open our schools up? I mean, having grown up in a small town, our little school was the heart of the community, and it was kind of an open door for sports and community, youth groups even could use it. So can you share a little bit more about that?
Sure. So I would say that we have had some problems since COVID, both with COVID itself, but then also some of the hiring shortages and things with our maintenance and custodial efforts, which sometimes then makes it difficult to open the schools to external groups. Much of that has been corrected, and there have been other things we've done as far as creating new types of positions like floater custodial roles and things like that, so that we can have our schools open more to the community. One thing I heard about was just in this particular instance, but there was a dance group that wanted to have performances in some of our West Side schools, and initially they weren't able to because we said we don't have the capacity to do that. But then they called me, and we worked things out, and we got things open, and we were able to offer it. Our intention in improving systems is that shouldn't even happen. That person should be able to approach the schools, and we should be able to have the capacity to serve. But again, there have been things that have been road bumps that we're overcoming, and I think we've seen improvement. So I would say that opening our schools for that type of event is important. Also, I think when we think about our family engagement framework that you'll hear more about tonight, that too is thinking about how do we more deeply engage our families and communities in the schools. We also think about our community schools efforts. We have community schools at Myers-Wilkins and at Lincoln Park and Denfeld, and we're also exploring grant writing additional grant writing for Laura MacArthur. And you might have heard some of the news about the Spirit Valley Wellness Center that we're working on. That would be a partnership between the city and our schools and the Duluth Community Schools Collaborative. That would be another means of making sure that our schools are more part of the community. But when you mention improving systems, I think the way that we do this is really to focus on what's most messed up and let's fix it. And then you go on to the next thing and say, what's the next system that is impacting things negatively, and how do we correct that? So making sure that there's continuity in the systems and make sure that there's systemic improvement, but then also making sure that things are documented and quantified, so that if somebody leaves, you know, if you know, I would hate for any of our senior leaders or directors or anybody to leave, but you never know when somebody might retire or change positions. We want to make sure that the systemic changes that we put in place, that there's succession plannings and documentation, so that the systems, the improved systems live on. But then, just like with our policy work, we're constantly like looking back and saying, okay, it's been a few years since we looked at this policy. Same thing with systems. If you know, we've improved a lot with our hiring timelines and with the way we hire, but I'm sure several years from now we'll want to come back to it and really re-examine it, go deep again.
Thank you, Superintendent Magus, and I would be remiss not to mention that we need you also to help us. We have bus driver positions open, we have para positions open, we have custodial positions that are available, so please let your neighbors or, you know, others that you may be in contact with who are seeking employment to consider our district, because those positions are available. It's not from a lack of the positions, it's from a lack of candidates and trying to keep those positions filled. Chair Lawful?
I was just going to jump in on how do we get our communities into our schools, or how do we make it so that it feels more opportunity to get in. But I'm at Denfeld almost daily and evenings, and between the community education programs that we offer, there is community band at Denfeld twice a week, and that brings in, you know, 50, 60 community members from across our city, and they just always are appreciative of being able to come into the site. Just last week, things that we don't know about, like I think it was the county, it was in Denfeld 3 nights that week to explain the 40th Avenue West corridor updates. So that brought in a whole other community into our building. And, you know, granted, we're not there. They don't see the staff or students, so I don't know if they even, you know, make a connection that the building is open and welcoming to them. We also hold most of our political caucuses and precincts within our classrooms and in our buildings. And I know maybe those are missed opportunities for us to have signage or to have, but, you know, you can't be everywhere. You already have about a 48-hour day. So, but there are community people in our buildings that we just don't realize. And I think they do feel that we have an incredible, open a door to policy, or to people coming into our buildings, at least in those capacities.
Thank you for sharing that. Any conclusion, closing remarks? Superintendent Magus?
I just want to say thank you. Again, it's certainly, you know, I'm the one sharing things that we were able to accomplish, but it's by no means just me. It's very much a team effort, and working with many good teachers, many good leaders, and as well as our cabinet and our senior leadership team. I'm just grateful every day for the work that we get to do. And to your point, Chair Lofold, we do have many different events, but it's also important for us to be part of and attend events. I think about the Citizens in Action event 2 weeks ago, and that was a really great opportunity for many of you as board members and us as leaders to step into the community and make connections that way. So it's always our intention to make sure that we are improving those systems. But thank you.
Thank you. Our next presenter and presentation will be given by Nate Smith. Nate, come on up. And Nate, as you come up, there's a mic there. We are charging another mic, and eventually you'll have that, but until then, you'll have a handheld mic.
Mr. Smith, I just want to apologize right away. I've got conferences for my son today, so if I sneak out when you're doing it, it's just I have to leave. So I appreciate it, and I will make sure to go back and watch the meeting. And so, thank you.
I'll cast here to boardroom 1. So, just one moment here. Oh, this is okay. Reminds me of all the nights I'd sing karaoke. Just kidding. All right. So this presentation is almost exactly what was in the board book. I did swapped out a couple slides. Alyssa, the amazing administrative support, and OEE helped a lot with the design of this presentation and getting it in time. So let's see here. All right, so I'm here to share a little bit about EAC, which is the Education Equity Advisory Committee here at the Committee of the Whole. And so what is the EAC? What is the Education Equity Advisory Committee? And this is a two-part slide, but EAC is dedicated to fostering diversity amongst its participants, including various perspectives, communities, and organizations. It's designed for active members who are committed to removing structural and institutional obstacles to educational opportunities for all students, and EAC acknowledges that there are historical barriers that have hindered learning and success based on factors such as race, culture, income, and other social conditions. And what is EAC continued? And so the purpose of EAC and its various subcommittees is for the Duluth schools to establish and use a citizens advisory committee to provide recommendations and advice on matters of education equity to the school board and district administrators regarding planning, implementation, and/or evaluation of various district initiatives or plans in compliance with the Minnesota statutes and rules, such as Achievement and Integration Plan, the ESSA, North Star Plan, and related policies, procedures, and goals. And EAC exists under School Board Resolution 1070 and is responsible to ensure operations under the scope of the committee are aligned with the vision, mission, and values of educational equity. And so these previous two slides were just drawn straight from the bylaws. So share a little bit about background of EAC. EAC has existed in our community for decades. Probably around 4 decades. And when I came on board, it had dissolved all to about 1 member and 1 school board member, and was the structure just wasn't working to bring in participation, and the bylaws didn't really support inclusive participation or the involvement of people. We want people to come and work around equity. So we worked on revitalizing EAC a couple months after I got started in this role. We brought in over 30 partners to a big meeting to review previous bylaws and proposed bylaws and to really break them down and design something that is or allows for inclusive participation of different folks, and that allows for the creation of different subcommittees to do various equity work. Part of the danger of work around equity is sometimes there's so many opportunities that exist within the community and within the school district. Spaces get created where some of those things are just talked about. So created new bylaws that allowed for the creation of various subcommittees to do focus equity work. And during the revitalization, we brought in partners from all these different organizations, including our American Indian Parent Advisory Committee. We had local leaders from the NAACP, representatives from the local Education Equity Alliance, UMD LSC, district leaders and teachers and all sorts of folks. So this is the EAC meeting structure. We meet monthly, once a month, September to May, as a full group EAC, and this is just the outline. And so we have changed the meeting structure a couple different times since the revitalization. And over the last year or so, this is the structure that we've been using. And so Dinner and relationship networking are an important part of EAC, and we provide dinner. And then also, in respect to people's capacity, created a time within the EAC meeting for subcommittees to get together and do their subcommittee work, rather than asking subcommittees to meet outside of EAC, although some chose to and continue to meet outside of EAC. Thank you. And so we have an hour at every EAC meeting time for subcommittees to do their work. And at 6 o'clock, the full EAC meeting opens with subcommittee updates, typically lasting about a half an hour or so. And then we spend the next half an hour for district and community updates and open floor for questions and asks for collaboration, and meeting adjourn at 7 p.m. So this structure is different from the previous structure in that we would meet from 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock, and oftentimes subcommittees didn't have the chance to work, and meetings would go late, and sometimes as late as 9 or 9:30. So we reorganized the structure to respect people's time and capacity to be involved in this work. It's volunteer, so asking people to come outside of their work day or their family life to come to these meetings to volunteer to do focus equity work. So we have a bunch of various subcommittees that have developed over the course of the revitalization of EAC. So going from 1 or 2 active members to right now we have over 50 active members within these various subcommittees doing focused work, and we'll walk through some of them. We have our Gender and Equity Task Force. They've met quite a lot during the previous 2 years to work on the gender inclusion policy that you all passed last year and went into effect. In Duluth schools is one of the only schools in northern Minnesota who has such a policy that are just protecting our kids with different gender identities. We have the preschool and early childhood subcommittee. We've got about 20 folks in this subcommittee. They're really working on family engagement and trying to bring in opportunities to bring in folks for coffee and conversation, open forums, and also trying to be intentional about supporting and connecting with the American Indian families within the preschool programs to share how Johnson O'Malley, JOM funding works and more. It's a fantastic resource for federally enrolled American Indian students who have access to financial support to participate in extracurricular activities and that sort of thing. We have our Indigenous Education, History, Culture, and Language Revitalization Subcommittee. A few members actually came and shared a presentation with the board last spring, and we had really great feedback from you all. And part of the response, the district supported the financially a second Ojibwe language teacher coordinator, which was added to the program. That's fully funded by ISD 709. And the subcommittee is looking to offer seminars in history and government classes focusing on Native American history, historiography from an indigenous perspective, and contemporary tribal governments, how tribal governments operate today. So we have a local freelance educator, Blair Paulus, who's connecting with our social studies teachers at the high school to teach some of the high school kids those things. We have our community engagement subcommittee. This is in transition, but we had previously been meeting with district leadership, like Superintendent Magus and Assistant Superintendent Bonds, Adele Wellens, our communications manager. Officer, I knew it was officer. I don't know why I said manager. And our climate coordinator, and just inviting diverse community members to ask questions, seek clarity. We gave a couple updates, but it was more just an open forum to give a space for diverse community members to share perspective. We have our Discipline Disparities Subcommittee, and they are currently looking to give input on a regulation addendum to our district policy 506 around discipline, to add specific language around restorative practices, advocacy representation, which means making sure integration specialists and American Indian homeschool liaisons and other advocates are present within the disciplinary processes, and an inclusive communication plan related to that. And they are also exploring the possibility of approaching different bargaining units to see if the leadership within units are open to crafting language of equity within their contracts. Recruitment and retention. So this committee was mentioned a little earlier. We had some representatives attend Juneteenth MLK, hopes of recruiting more diverse staff to our district. And they're exploring other community events to table at, such as powwows and the like. And our office, the Office of Education Equity, is creating affinity groups for diverse identifying staffs to network, build relationships, discuss climate dynamics. Within our most recent Achievement Integration Plan, we built in funding to support 4 affinity group meetings. This year, we had our first one of the year in December with about 20 diverse identifying staff coming together. Really great feedback, and we have a teacher leader who we will be contracting with to really support the development of affinity groups. So you'll probably see that contract coming across your table here in a future meeting, the next one probably. And then the affinity groups, as they get together and do work, they're going to be under the umbrella of our recruitment and retention subcommittee. We have our families in transition subcommittee, and that is also in transition. We have a new FIT coordinator, Caitlin Jamar, who has been onboarded into some of the work that the FIT committee did last year and is looking to redevelop this committee to include all the people within her staff. And we have the HOLA subcommittee, the Hispanic Organization of Latin America. This committee hosted a multicultural event at Lowell last year to celebrate diversity of our community, had over 800 people in attendance, and plans to continue this tradition, and are planning another big culture event at Lowell here this spring. We have our elementary education and our Read Well by Grade 3 subcommittee, and this committee is working really hard to engage the district and different community groups and organizations that are doing similar work around literacy. And so they look at a lot of data around students of color, and are looking to partner with local foundations and the like to try to bring more literacy opportunities for the youngest students of our community. And sorry. We have the Denfeld BSA, Black Student Association, led by Soraya Piantek. It's a student-ran, supported by Soraya Piantek, and it's a student-ran committee. Meets at Denfeld and attends EAC meetings to share student voices and perspectives. Soraya recently shared to me that they have a fully booked calendar for different Black History Month events, including a assembly on Friday the 16th during WIN. So I encourage you all, if you're free during that time, to come and celebrate some of the great work that our students are doing. We have our most recent developing subcommittee. This was mentioned a little bit earlier, but our Education Equity Task Force and Monitoring Team convened for the first meeting in January. It took a month or two longer to convene a team than anticipated, but hit the ground running and to work on the continued development of the Education Equity Framework. So the school board passed the equity resolution back in 2018, and there was a few things that just needed to work to continue on, including the implementation and the monitoring of the T-tool and district alignment to the 10 commitments of equity. Some of this language you also see within the strategic plan. And in response to the question earlier, Henry, that team will also be working on a recruitment and retention plan to be shared with the school board and district leadership cabinet team and the like. And this team meets monthly. We're asking people to come meet for 3-hour sessions outside of work and also to do homework to learn about equity in between the meetings. The next meeting here is in about 2 weeks, and that's a working meeting to design that implementation and monitoring framework for the use of the T-tool, which, if anybody doesn't know, the T-tool is a tool for equity, accountability, and it's a decision-making structure that that anyone can use really to make sure that you're intentional of considering diverse perspectives and decision-making processes. You can also see some of the aspirations of the framework are also to include affinity group structure and guidelines, family and community engagement framework, district support of advisory teams such as the Education Equity Advisory Committee and the American Indian Parent Advisory Committee and other district advisory teams, and that monitoring team will also consider other policies, practices, organizational culture, identifying areas for improvement, develop and identify measurable goals, objectives, and accountability measures to progress monitor the implementation of any of these things, and determining key milestones and timelines. And a big part of the culture of that group is to be willing to adapt the plan as needed and be willing to bring in and identify missing perspectives from that table. So as we went through and we created all these different subcommittees, we got to a point where even within, let's say, discipline disparities, there's a lot of work just to be done. And so we created this, it's called a committee charter that can, that the facilitators or different committees are working to define a mission statement for their committee and articulate the objectives, the membership and the like. We have seen turnover within memberships of various committees because we're asking people to volunteer, and not only to volunteer, but to volunteer around heavy work, emotional work. And so understanding that retention is challenging, we want to be able to create a structure for that work to continue regardless of who's leading the subcommittee or regardless of who's in charge of the subcommittee. So charter development is inherently important to that, just to define focus and retain that focus despite of who's within those groups. And that's what I had. I took a couple notes, though, Henry, in regards to some of your questions. Recruitment and retention plan, I mentioned that. And Student Representative Miller, you mentioned students need to be comfortable. And because it's really hard, I think, to encourage students to become teachers if their experience within the classroom is hostile. And so we need to really work on our climate and culture within some of our schools to ensure that students feel safe. And I wanted to mention too, our district applied for the Come Teach in Minnesota funding stream, which is part of new legislations for the recruitment and retention of diverse staff. And so if there is a diverse identifying teacher, Black or American Indian, Hispanic or Asian, and they are from outside of Minnesota, even Wisconsin, they can come here and work for our district, and we can give them a $5,000 stipend the day that they start working for us. If that teacher continues to work for 4 years, they can get another $5,000 stipend as a recruitment retention stipend. So there's that in the progress. If we are successful in getting the Grow Your Own grant, we applied through the adult pathways, which means that we can cultivate opportunities for both district personnel, but also important, maybe even more so, community members. So we can go to local churches or community hubs to share that we can pay for your whole educational journey. And another intersecting dynamic is in Minnesota, we have the, it's like the U Promise or whatever that program is, where if your family makes $80,000 or less, they can get tuition paid for. So then if someone is eligible for that free tuition for a Minnesota State College or university, we can use the Grow Your Own funding to provide stipends for living expenses or the like, and which is extraordinarily important because there's the student teaching is a tremendous barrier for a lot of people getting into the field. And I think as we develop our recruitment and retention plan too, looking internally at different processes that we have, such as interviews. like making sure that we have the structures that have diverse representation on interviews, making sure there's intention to connect someone's core competencies or ability to do a position with the opportunity to do that role rather than judging someone's only ability to teach with how well they did on an interview. There's other more equitable ways that we can just infuse equity into the way that we're doing things. So, but we need to work on all these things at the same time and focus on retention, because it's an isolating place. Duluth is as a community for Black, Brown, and Native folks, and understanding that that feeling of isolation exists in our community as a whole, and it manifests itself in our school communities. So how can we intentionally support the Black, Brown, and Native staff that we have here?
Thank you. Member Williams?
Yeah, going back to the affinity group, so it says open to diverse identifying staff. What does diverse include in that definition? Are we talking about differently abled people? Are we talking about neurodivergent people? Are we talking about gender and, gender and sexual identities? And then is it open to diverse identifying board members as well?
Great question. So we created the affinity groups for racially diverse or gender diverse identifying staff. But we made the messaging inclusive. We can't, even though the space is for, Black, brown, and queer folk, we can't just deny a person who's white who wants to be present. And so we also have to ask people to self-identify the diversity. I can't look at someone and identify them as being diverse through my experience. So we send out surveys for people to self-identify. And through that process, we've had people who are white allies who want to participate. And before we met, sent a really eloquent email about sometimes allyship is ensuring that spaces remain safe for the intention behind those spaces. So when we created that space, none of those folks showed up. And for diverse identifying board members, I would say absolutely. I think that we talk about the isolation that people feel in the community. And so if we can build a community intentionally amongst ourselves within our community, including board members or other people affiliated professionally with the district, it can only do good things.
Okay, so are there efforts then in the district as a whole, so this might be for anybody, maybe not just you, but to, I guess, improve equity when it comes to differently abled people and neurodiverse people and all of that? Because I've not seen concentrated efforts, but I also haven't paid attention because it didn't affect me before. So curious about that.
Not that I'm aware of. I think that there's opportunity that exists there. The affinity groups that we have here are still relatively fresh. And I think too, as we pursue, recruitment, retention, and support of all diverse identifying staff, we need to do so with intention to make sure that that's not fully housed within the Office of Education and Equity. Recruitment and retention is by nature a human resources department initiative or opportunity for pursuit that should be supported by the Office of Education Equity, but also supported by the Department of American Indian Education, and also supported by all these other departments that we have in the district. So I think as we provide fully encompass supports for all diverse identifying staff, it starts in part to making sure people understand the definition of diversity is beyond just race and gender.
Thank you. Member Banks?
Thank you. I think this is more a clarifying question. So you mentioned families in transition. Does that include homeless students? Can you, if it does, can you share as it relates to homeless BIPOC students, what you are doing with that program? And you mentioned some of the 30-plus organizations or people that are part of the committee, and you mentioned the NAACP as one of those groups. Have you included folks from the African Heritage Commission? Have they reached out, or have you reached out to them? Family Freedom Center, Family Rise together, so that there is a cross-section of folks from the African Heritage community?
All right, multifaceted question. So if I lose track of one of them, just
Yes,
don't hesitate
right,
to
I know
ask
it's
again.
kind of, yeah, thank you.
So those 30 groups were the partners that we brought in to redo the bylaws. And so I don't think there was representatives from the African Heritage Commission within that back in December 2021 when we came together. We do regularly have representatives from the local NAACP at those meetings, including myself. I'm the secretary for the NAACP. And I'm going to take a note of that, Henry, though, to reach out to the African Heritage Commission to just extend an invitation for participation. With that said, too, you will notice within the subcommittees, I've been wanting to create an African Heritage subcommittee. So if you know people who are interested, I've reached out to Family Freedom Center and other local African Heritage leaders to express interest and opportunity, and haven't been able to find someone to lead it yet. So when we create a subcommittee, we need at least one person willing to be a facilitator and 3 people willing to be members with a commitment to meet at least monthly. And we can't really incentivize participation, with, financially or otherwise. So you're asking people to come in and volunteer over, contributing perspective over things that are, emotional by nature, that are disheartening when you dive into it, and frustrating to navigate trying to support some of these issues that have been pervasive to our community for decades. So someone within that commission, though, may be willing.
I want to thank you for the difficult work that you're doing and your team, and appreciate everything. And so I just wanted to mention those organizations because I think it would be necessary for them to get involved as well. Thank you.
Member Sadowski?
Oh, wait, excuse me. The families in transition point 2. I had that. Just one moment, Amber. Member Sadowski. I'm taking this note here. So families in transition is supporting students experiencing homelessness, and so as our society goes through a people first language, we now say students experiencing homelessness versus homeless students, and the language that we use now is families in transition, and they are a disproportionate amount of our students experiencing homeless are people of color, and something not within this presentation, but the district is funding and supporting a new position within the integration specialists. And so we have a families in transition focused integration specialist that's supporting transportation for students to and from school, and also is working with students experiencing homelessness at the secondary level, supporting a college and career readiness and the like. Yep.
Member Sadowski?
And I would just add too, we have families in transition in our ECFE program at the Washington Center, right? Yep. So, well, I have a few things, not a lot of big things. I just wanted to first thank you for all of your work on this. It's been a pleasure to serve on the EAC for the last couple years and this coming year, although this Thursday I'm triple booked, so I don't know if I'll be able to get there. 2 of my favorite things about EAC is, number 1, just the community building that happens, bringing a lot of people together from all of our community at those meetings, from youth to elders. There's a wide variety of people there who bring a lot of thoughtful questions, inquiry, ideas, and conversation. So I just have appreciated going and just listening. I try to sit at a different table every time, and there's just a lot to take in. And it was really great having our Indigenous Education, History, Culture, and Language Revitalization Group come and present too, and just hear more in depth what they've been working on. I had a comment about the T-tool. I've been doing a little reflection as a board member with, I've used the T-tool, but I haven't really talked about it a lot at the board table. I used it most recently when we were, changed our public comment to a listening session. So I filled that out, but I think we could do better so our community knows we're still using that. Are you doing, you're not going to revise it, are you? Or what was your comment about the T-tool?
So the next task force meeting, we're going to do a deep dive into the implementation and monitoring the use of the T-tool and
Okay.
providing recommendations of what that could look like. The T-tool, from what I can tell, is modeled after the Minnesota Department of Education has what's called an equity magnifier. And if you Google that, it will come up, and there's a lot of same questions that kind of solicit one's ability to see through the lenses or perspectives of other people. And we've appreciated having you there too at EAG, Amber. I know that people appreciate having a board member there and the leadership and the perspective that you bring.
Great, thank you. And then my last comment was just, I appreciate that you're looking at a charter development, with succession planning and things like that. You've done such a great job revitalizing EAC, so that'll just make it even stronger, so thank you.
Member Larfa Kemp?
Yep, thank you. Thank you, Nate. It really has been great to see how you have, as Amber said, revitalized EAC and really brought so many new community members to the table and to the discussions and to that relationship building. So it's been really a privilege to see your work when you took this on. I just had two questions. One is the grants that you talked about, again, the Grow Your Own, and then you talked about another one, and I didn't write down the name of it. Do you know when we would hear on those grants and when the funding would become available for us to use the goals of those grants?
Yes, so I believe that they're going to be providing notification for award recipients this spring, late March for Grow Your Own. I could be wrong. A quick Google on MDE's website, though, would show. I know that they're in the review process now. There are two pathways that for the pursuit of Grow Your Own, and we went for the adult pathways where we can support adults and community members accessing that. And then the other grants that we applied for last year but didn't get, and they changed some of the stipulations for application this year, is the Come Teach in Minnesota. Okay. So this year, anyone who applies for the funds is enrolled within the program, and last year it was like a lottery basis. But they didn't spend all the money last year, and so that's why it's just the money is there for anybody who enrolls and until it dries out.
Okay, great, thank you. And then the last thing, I know you could have said so much more about the Families in Transition program, because we've had this program for a long time. There's federal funds that are attached to that. And now that we have a new Families in Transition person, maybe that would be a good committee of the whole conversation, just so everyone can understand more about just how that's funded even, and the history of the work that Families in Transition has done. So that was just my comment on expanding that discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. And yes, because the position is new, she's new in the position, and the needs have increased throughout the community. So we've, as Nate indicated, we've expanded position to help support students who are experiencing homelessness and with transportation and just in other areas. So it's unfortunately has grown significantly in numbers. And so we will be, the plan is to provide an update related to programming and the ongoing needs. Superintendent Magus?
Thank you. Appreciate very much the work that's being done. Thinking about some of the comments too, about it's not just your lift or your department's lift, it's the lift of everybody in the district. I think that's really critical. We had quite a while ago, we renamed the Teaching and Learning Department the Teaching, Learning, and Equity Department because we think it's the lift of everybody, but that department in particular that focuses on the learning of all of our kids, we want to make sure that it's especially called out there, as with the title changes for Assistant Superintendent of Teaching, Learning, and Equity and the directors of Secondary Teaching, Learning, and Equity and Elementary, because equity is critical to what we do. And I think that I just really appreciate the community support we have with all the committees, the facilitation that you provide, and just wanted to say thank you for that, and appreciate your time.
And I just have one final comment. I forgot to mention this. Something new that we were trying with EAC this year is a co-collaborative community engaged leadership model, and getting community partners to facilitate and or co-facilitate the EAC meetings, in part to empower the community, in part to demonstrate the importance of community partnerships. And so this year we had a few community members facilitate EAC. I mean, I'm kind of holding their hand through the process, but it's just been quite fantastic. So.
Thank you. Our next presentation will be provided by Adele Wellens, who is our communications officer, and Shalon Monroe, who is our family community engagement specialist. They will provide a presentation that will provide an overview of the family and community engagement efforts at the district level, and they will also provide a draft and walk through a draft of the family engagement framework with the board. So I'll turn it over to them.
Well, hello, everyone. How's everyone doing today? Great. Okay. I'm about to say, you seem tired. Wake up. Come on now. Here for it. Well, we are going to get things set up. Adele is, but as Assistant Superintendent already stated, that I am the new family engagement specialist, and I think we are ready, so I'm going to stop talking right now. Okay. So I'll just do a quick intro about myself. I am a Southerner. I am from North Carolina. I was a news and sports reporter for WDIO for 2 years. That ended in October, and somehow God just decided that he needed me to stay here a little bit longer. And so I am now in the school district. My education background is communication, so I know nothing about school besides me going there, but this has been a whirlwind. It has been a whirlwind of saying, I tell people all the time, when you, in my field, you go somewhere, you learn about the story of the city, not the city itself. And so I did my job, and I presented my story, and I went home. Now I see Duluth in a whole nother layer. I see it from the eyes of the students. I see it from the eyes of the family. I see it from the eyes of people who were born, thank you, and raised here, and it is different. And so for me, which one is that? Sorry, thank you. So for me, with this as this a brand new position, I get to kind of create the roadmap. I tell people that roadmap will definitely look different because where I come from, I don't see a lot of this. I tell people again all the time, I come from a city of 300,000 people. We're all kind of together, Black, white, Native, Hispanic, Latino, and so coming here, it's a whole different landmark. I was raised in a family of 2 parents. They were married. They were very into our academics and also our sports. And I know everyone doesn't have that, but that does not mean, I'll say it again for people who don't hear me, that does not mean that your road cannot be the same. It will look different, but you can get to the same stage as your counterpart. And so I want to give that to every student. I want every family to hear that. And I want this community and this city to know that. And we are all one. So I will turn it over to my partner, Adele, now.
Hi, I'm Adele Wellens. I'm a communications officer. I've been in the district for about 2 years, and as many of you know, I used to work at the Duluth News Tribune as the education reporter covering this school district for about 2.5 to 3 years before that. I'm just going to start off by going a little bit into what I do. This is just a small snapshot. I don't think I could actually list everything that I do. So some of my major things are family communication from the district, helping with crisis communication for principals who need to communicate certain types of issues to their families. I do the weekly newsletter, as well as handle all of our social media and our website. I also am the admin for Parent Square, which is the new communication application that we've launched with our families and across the school district. I'm also in charge of advertising. So I do all the Facebook advertising, Google, Hulu, billboards, bus, anything and everything that's related to advertising. I help HR with advertising as well and get them connected with certain people, as well as help other groups and programs in our district do some advertising as they need some guidance. Another major thing that I'm going to mostly hand off to Shalon this summer is our Unity and Community. So I'm glad to have someone to really help me out with that program and that event. It just kind of, the first year was kind of small, but last year it really exploded and it kind of got crazy towards the end there. I also do a lot of graphic design. I designed the handbook, I do flyers, I designed the podium. As you can see, I also did the World's Best Workforce and the strategic plan. I also help train people on Canva so they can create their own flyers in graphic design. It's a really easy tool that's free for the district and for all educators. And then also I'm in charge of doing a lot of photography when I can. As you see the photos up there, all of those photos are photos I have taken.
Now we will move to me and kind of what I've done. So one thing that I wanted to do was to meet all the principals at all of the schools. And so I've done that, spent time in all the buildings, attended the Family Freedom Thanksgiving dinner, which really, again, continued to open up my eyes and more of a community aspect, especially some of our elders who this is pretty much a town that you've helped to build. And so kind of learning from them their historic background of when they went to school and kind of doing a compare and contrast. Another thing, I'm a person, I like to build relationships. So I build deep connections with community members, with students, with families. That's a part of me. So I take that as serious as I can. Once a week, I'm in the schools visiting. I spent last Tuesday at East. So I come in there usually like 9:30, and I'm there the entire time. I go into different classrooms. I kind of sit in the back. People look at me, but it's okay. So I like sit in the back and I kind of observe, and then I see students, you know, especially if I see them in the hallway, I try to have a conversation. Some I walk back to their class. Also in the lunchroom, I like to interact with them so that way they at least see me. Because when you see me, I want people to feel comfortable to stop me again, to say hello, and then we continue to talk, and that's how you build those relationships. Also within Lincoln Park, and so I'm building up to go to Denfield next week and then go to Ordine the following week. On top of that, outside organizational visits, we are working on a big reading event for March 1st. It is top secret, so I'm sorry I can't tell you. Attending family nights and different school events, I have a few which I think are really good for me to attend. Lincoln Park has their school and family conference night. I think Denfield has some, Condon Elementary has some, so that allows the parents to see me. I feel like if I can't get to the student first, then I can't get to the families. And so I want families to see that we are here, and if that means you're gonna see me every single month, we're gonna have a nice relationship. So that's what me. This next slide is about an event that I did at Stephen O'Neill, and excuse me, I did not do it. I was probably the face of it, but all of my colleagues definitely pitched in, and without them, we would have not had that resource night. But we brought all the resources to Stephen O'Neill, Duluth Adult Education, Early Childhood Family Engagement, the community schools. We had principals from Lincoln, Denfield, and Myers, including staff members from Myers. Provided food, just really great conversation. Didn't know how it was gonna turn out, and when I started to see people through the doors, I think my heart kind of exploded. We've had their staff to say that's one of the best events attended by families in their building. And if we all know, Stephen O'Neill has been around for a while, so to hear that comment definitely did well. And then one thing that we heard a lot is that if you, a parent, or a staff member said, I've never met the parent of my student. And so to see that parent and that staff member, that child engage with one another, and then for her to tell her about her child and to see the parent's face just light up, I want more of that. We need more of that. So that was something that we did, and it was just something that was just put on. And, you know, my goal is to do more of these. At least, my goal is to do at least 4, and do it within the community. I've also heard that people have a historic trauma about going back to those schools. And so we're trying to do it in places like the Washington Center. We're trying to go over to the East or Dean side and just do one areas to where parents and students feel comfortable. So I'm going to pass it back over to Adele now.
So these are our current different types of methods of family engagement: social media, newsletter, Parent Square, printed materials, community meetings, obviously the face-to-face conversations, as well as unity and community. And then I know that Shalon has been engaging in spending time at community outreach like the Washington Center, as well as Lincoln Park Boys and Girls Club. Regarding social media, I just kind of wanted to bring you some numbers. So this is the growth that you see on Facebook and Instagram. That's since I started. So we are up in our growth and our reach. Those 2 posts were our top posts this in January. Yeah, one of them is one of Jill's debate students. And the other one was actually the Dunfeld Snow Snake event. It was posted like the day before and the day of. So it was really surprising to see how many people that reached and how many people shared that event poster. This is the newsletter report for January for our s'more newsletter. That's what the little fire symbol is. So those are total views and average views. I did notice that since using Parent Square to send out the newsletter, our views have gone from about 1,600 a week to over 5,000 a week. So it's obviously really helped. And the only thing I can think of, because based on the analytics, is that at 6 o'clock on Friday, 6 o'clock every day, parents get digests sent to their emails. So they're looking at it on Friday night when they get that digest. Here are the early stats for Parent Square. We have 46, this is as of last Friday, so 46.7% of staff have registered to use the app. 36% of parents have registered on Parent Square, with 19% using the app. Lowell is our top school user with 41% of their parents on the app, as well as the amount of posts that their teachers and their principal have been doing. And one thing that they are really enjoying is the auto translation for Spanish. So they can message the Spanish immersion teachers can message their parents in English, and it would auto translate to Spanish if they preferred that language. And then ALC and AEO were our first adapters of the app. They started using it back in November as a safety feature so that they could message each other and you may have gotten the message, students in case there's an emergency around their building out in the community, so that if students are down at the YMCA and there's something happening in the skywalk or at the building, they can tell their students to stay. So they've been really excited about using it, and it's really met their needs regarding communicating security issues and emergencies around the building. So me and Shalon spent the past 2 or 3 weeks working on a family engagement framework draft. So what was sent to you is a draft version. So far, it has gone to TLE, and that was, or Teaching, Learning, and Equity. And that was yesterday, Monday? Yep, that was Monday. And then next week, it will go to Principals Plus. And then I'm hoping to bring it to EAC in April. Shalon, do you just want to talk a little bit about?
Yes. So, like Adele mentioned, just kind of working with what we have, and we kind of base it around, when you all have a chance, you'll see we base it around our 5 core values. We also looked at what are some of the goals, what are measurable outcomes, what are practices, and it was more of like, how do we align the vision that we see for family engagement, what family engagement means, and then how do we align it within our core values. And I just want to read, obviously we can all see, but I'm just going to read what family engagement definition is: a full, equal, and equitable partnership among families, educators, and community partners to promote children's learning and development from birth through college and career, excuse me. And I'm just going to read the vision. Families are engaged in their child's education and feel empowered to support learning at home through strong partnerships with school. Our relations with families are at the center of success for every child at school. Look at that. That is the bold point of what family engagement is. And that one word that sticks out is partnership. It's having a partnership with schools, having a partnership with our community, and having a partnership with the ones that are valuable, our students, because we want them to be successful. We want them to feel that when you cross the stage to get your diploma from Duluth Public Schools, that you are set up for success, and that you know that you've had the resources and the tools, whether you decide to stay here or go beyond these doors, to represent the city and know that you got the best that you could.
So we spent a lot of time doing research. The main book that we used, that you can see on the screen, I added that tonight. It's called Everyone Wins: The Evidence for Family School Partnerships and Implications for Practice. So that book is, it was actually a really good book. I have probably the most tabbed book I've ever read, and I'm not a nonfiction reader. And it has a lot of good case studies in there that we really took from. And then at the end of our family engagement, you'll see a rule brick. And that rule brick, we hope to be able to use as a baseline to determine where we're at our family engagement by school and across the district. And that rule book comes from the National School PR Association. So they provided that rule book on their website as a resource. And we feel that it really aligned with the family framework that we created and really aligned with what we want to see within our district. And that's the end of our presentation, and we can open it up to questions.
Member Sadowski?
I just have to say thank you for that event at Steve O'Neill Apartments. It was really great. Families are still talking about it, staff are. It really was one of the highest attended events. We've been building up a lot more engagement there, but I really appreciate you and other staff's work on that event. Wanted to say that. I had one other thing, but it seems to have slipped my mind for now, so hopefully it'll come back.
Student Representative Ritzko?
Thank you for bringing up the ALC and stuff like that. It is, like, I do remember when Parent Square was, this is more of a comment than a question, but I do remember when the staff were going around being like, hey, get Parent Square, and stuff like that. And yeah, it definitely was a odd time, especially since we were like at the beginning of like, wow, that just slipped my mind. Starting to, okay, I'm just gonna stop talking.
Superintendent Magus?
Sure. I just want to say thanks to both of you. I think that this is a really important work when we think about so many different aspects. I mean, we can think about it from advancing equity perspective, especially improving systems. I talked about a variety of systems, and I did talk about family engagement, but I didn't talk about the communication systems changes that we've had. Dell, you've really led that extremely well, and if we think about the revamping of almost everything we've done from a communications perspective in the past couple of years, you've been at the heart of that and really appreciate it. And I had the pleasure of knowing Shalon before she came into the position, and she impressed me then and impresses me even more now with the way that she engages students and parents and community members and families. It's just really, really important to us. And I think that really the concept of making sure that we're meeting people where they're at and where they're coming from and where they're comfortable is really, really critical, whether it's through family engagement or other efforts. I also think about the way that you frame this. You're not talking about family involvement. You're thinking about family engagement and family partnership. So how are we valuing our parents and how are we valuing our families rather than just thinking about how can we get you to come to a conference or a bake sale, right? So thank you very, very much for the great work that you've done.
Student Representative Miller.
I just wanted to say thank you because I've seen you in the schools like all the time, and I've talked to you, I've had conversations with you, so it's like you're actually doing what you're saying, and I really appreciate that. Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for both for doing all the work and the social media. I've seen it around a lot, and I really like it, so yeah.
You're
Member
not about to
Meitzell.
make me cry. I just want y'all to know that, okay? I'm an emotional person.
Thank you for all the work that you're doing for our district and for our students and their supporters. I have two comments, or one comment, one question. So I feel like all of this is so great because it brings, gives parents and guardians more of an opportunity to be involved and engaged in their students' classrooms and in their schools. And that's something that I know that from questionnaires and in our strategic plan, that's something that's a priority for us. I noticed on your Parent Square early stats, we still have, well, as of last week, there was less than half of our staff were registered and using it. So what are we doing to support our staff so that they can learn the benefits of using this method to communicate with them, between themselves, their other staff members, their schools, and their families?
Yes, so that's a good question. So some staff have chosen not to use it at this time and are waiting until next school year to really start it with their families. And we also have Peter Graves, our Educational Technology Innovation Coordinator. I hope I got that right. He has scheduled meetings throughout the district with staff members to help with the training. So I believe he has Myers-Wilkins coming up, and he's already been at Cogden, and I believe he's also headed to Laura Mack at some point. So we're kind of like tag teaming that because the times that they need to be met with, I kind of don't work with my schedule of meetings and stuff like that. So he's been really helpful with that. And I actually just recruited someone from technology to also help with those trainings. So, and we did pay a stipend to anybody who took the training asynchronous between December and the end of January. And I believe we had over, if I remember correctly, we had over 700 staff members do the training asynchronously.
That's great. I know that Member Lufald and Member Banks and I were able to visit Myers-Wilkins this early afternoon, and Principal Jackson there was just, singing the praises of this method of communication, and could possibly be a professional cheerleader for Parent Square. So it seems as though there's a lot of positives about this, and there are so many tools that I didn't even realize it had, even as being a parent and having it on my phone right now. That would just sound like are really beneficial to our district. So thanks so much for helping coordinate that, and hopefully we can get more parents on the app so they can also be benefiting from it as well.
Yeah, and I will actually be at Lincoln Park on Thursday during their family night to help parents sign up and get them familiar with the app. And then I will also be at Myers-Wilkins next week doing a table during their family night and conferences to also help parents. And I mean, Ray, the one thing that we did a training with her and her dean and her attendance clerical, because she's been in between clericals pretty much all year. So I did a training with them last week. So the one thing that I think she really liked was being able to change one of her parents' preferred language to Spanish, so she doesn't have to go through a translator or try to translate using Google, which is not always great because it goes word by word and doesn't look at the full sentence. So. And then another thing that's being used by Lowell that I got a phone call, they were so excited, one of the teachers, is being able to do conference signups within the app as well.
Student Representative Padronis.
I just wanted to add to everyone's thankfulness of the work that both of you do. I've seen you at East before, and I just want to say how crucial I think it is to have people like you be present within our school and creating those bonds with students. So thank you for that.
Chair Lofo?
Thank you, although member Mike Sell already kind of said what I was going to say, is that we were at Myers this afternoon, and probably for all of us on the board, Parent Square, although maybe many of you have it because you have students in the building and all of that, but, you know, for me, Parent Square is a new technology. I've seen it in a little bit of the newsletters. I don't need an in-service on it. I'll talk to my colleagues and get that, but it does sound remarkably, you know, incredible. Glad that I think you were introduced to it at a conference, or you knew that it was a good tool. I know that probably staff that are waiting till next fall because there's a lot on our plates and just one more new thing to do. But, you know, communication with our staff and our students and our community, it's safety, it's necessary. But we do have, they're going to continue to use the methods they've used to reach, you know, who they want. And maybe you know, the colleagues will talk amongst themselves and help each other, you know how to best use that tool. I've also seen Miss Monroe in schools. She's met now, I think, my whole family at Lowell, at Falls at the Denfeld site, but appreciate that as well. And just one more shout out for Jupiter Kelly Swing, whose picture's on your social media, Juniper, that's right, that's yours. Because she was just also, this picture is about an award she won through the Minnesota Debate Association, but the Minnesota State High School League also just awarded her this week another recommendation for her continued leadership and her heart. I think it's called the Heart of the Minnesota State High School League, and so they're also celebrating as well. And again, our social media presence has been phenomenal, I'd say, for the last year, maybe even longer, but it's consistent, it's interesting, it's well-defined with color and pictures or word usage, so I really appreciate that as well. Is there a reason why Instagram seems, I always thought Instagram was like the way to connect, and it seems like our monthly reach is so underrepresented there?
So Facebook is where our parents are at and where our community is at. And I have learned after posting about the Away for the Day policy, Instagram is where our students are at, because they did take over that post during the summer to express their displeasure. But so yeah, so that's why the reach is so drastically different. Also, you know, Facebook, the reason why we have so many more followers is we have alumni that are following on Facebook, we have parents, we have community members, and I guess, I mean, Instagram is very, I think, more youth are on there.
Student Representative Miller, and then Member Lafleur-Camp.
I would like to add on to like how Instagram, I agree, it's more definitely student based. I was wondering, is it like, do you accept like DMs from students for like community events that are going on or like anything? I think that should be like a asset to Instagram because that is where like the students are at.
Yeah, so we do have direct messages turned on for Instagram. I recently turned off direct messages to all of our Facebook because of spam. It was just getting out of hand, and there was a lot of malicious links being sent to our Facebooks. So I turned it off for all of our schools on Facebook, but they are still available on Instagram.
Member Lafleur-Camp, and then Member Sadowski.
Yeah, I just really want to sing praises for the work that both of you are doing. And Adele, just the increased presence that I, as a parent in this district, have seen for, you know, being here for 30 years and just what you've done in your short time with us has been really incredible. So thank you for that. And I am just thrilled to death that we have a family engagement coordinator. As someone who got involved with PTA 30 years ago, And that was the avenue in this district that we had to get involved. But I'm also thrilled that you're using this particular book, Everybody Wins, because Ann Henderson, one of the authors and one of the storytellers in that book, is an incredible advocate and has been for over 40 years on family engagement across the country. I've had trainings with her, so I was thrilled when you used that as one of your tools in creating the framework, and it's spot on to what I've seen across the country. Very diverse communities have used to engage parents, and so just applaud. I'm so thrilled that we are moving in this direction as a district. So, and I also, want to acknowledge that we have had many parent groups that have been very active in Duluth, and so in our schools, like the PTAs, and so and former parent involvement coordinators that used to be funded through the district by school. So I hope that we can kind of connect with them as well, because and I know you have a focus, but I think that they can be supportive in different ways as well. And the PTAs buy in. The PTAs have been advocating for family school partnerships in lots of ways over the years and passing policies at district levels as well as at the state level. So you're right on with what many of them are trying to do in schools. That's where parent involvement has happened. So thank you. Or parent engagement.
Yes, ma'am. If I may say something, I know we're running out of time. That is absolutely true. I actually have in my office all of the schools that have PTAs. I have like Stowe when there is until March, and still getting with other schools as well. And I've even talked to parents as well, because again, I can talk to the students, and I can hear what they need. I can hear what they want. But again, in order to get to the parents, I got to get to the student, and then I can get to the parents. And so being able to really be in their space to understand, because I don't have kids, so I look at it from my parents' perspective. And so being able to be in that area to see what they need, which is what every parent wants, is their child to be successful. And if we have the resources and can bring that to the table and work together. So thank you for that, and trust and believe this is not a closed door, it's definitely open.
Yeah, and the last thing, I know I've shared this before, but one of the Stowe PTA parent leaders started out being a leader in Head Start with the governing board, and that development that she got from our Head Start community really gave her the confidence to do what she's doing out at Stowe. And I think, so being at Steve O'Neill and being in the community in those ways, those are our future leaders for our parent involvement groups at the school level.
Just really quick, so for community partners who may be encouraging families, and do students use this too, or is it just for the parents? The Parent Square app?
Students can also use it as well.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So for community partners who may be encouraging parents to sign up for Parent Square, if they run into issues, should they just call their school?
If they run into issues, they can reach out to me at communications@isd709.org.
Okay, thanks.
And the app for students is different. It's called Student Square, so they would search for Student Square in the app. And it's opened for middle and high school students only.
Thank you. Thank you, Adele and Shalon. Up next, we have a presentation provided by Jen Larva and Dale Usman. They will provide an update related to the annual course catalog for the upcoming school year. I'll turn it over to them.
Hi, thank you, everyone. First of all, I think this is my first committee of the whole where we've had students here, which to me is super exciting. I just want to share that as we've done our course catalog changes this year, some questions had come up, and Mr. Uzelman and I had tapped into our training that we had last year from Leading Equitable Schools with SEL, and we said, you know, we need to go and hear from the kids. We need to hear what they would like to see in the course catalog regarding this concern that had come up. So he and I, we had the best time, and we went to Denfeld, and we met with their student government group. I think it was their student government group, and we asked them questions about what kinds of programming they wanted to see. And then we went to East, and I believe it was their, no, it wasn't their POV. Was it their student government too? I guess it was student government for both of them. So we had an opportunity to come in and say, hey, this is what we're thinking about. We need to tap into students. They told us everything we needed to know and more. So it was really a fantastic experience. So I really appreciate that students are here. You know, we do try to get into the schools and get that street level data is how we call that, and raise and lift those voices of kids so that they have some decisions that, input into decisions that are being made on their behalf. So I just kind of wanted to share that a little bit. We're coming today with where we currently are at with our 24-25 high school and middle school course catalog changes. As you know, we have been going deep and hard into some middle school model stuff, and I know I had shared that with you earlier, which is super exciting to me because it means that we are offering more courses at the middle school level, which I think we're going to get into some cool courses here that are good add-ons, and I'm going to let Mr. Uzelman, when we get to that part, talk about a process that he used with a subgroup of the middle school model committee. He can kind of share with you how he got some input from students and staff around what we'd like to see being offered at our middle school. Some of the things I also wanted to talk about is that when we come to our course catalog and the changes, this is all starting back in August and September. And I know that sometimes the dynamic of the school year changes and we might have some shifting things that happen. And so this is where we're at right now. We have to get our course catalog ready. We have to get things ready to push out so that we can get kids registered already for next year. We should be registering at the end of February, beginning of March. So, you know, there could be some potential more changes down the line that we might have to come and just like give you an update. So I just kind of want to give you that for a heads up. But some of the things that are in here are some of the work is realigning things. So we do know with Danette Sebo's new position, she's really working on these career pathways. And so we have aligned some things to the Minnesota career fields and clusters and pathways. She's going to talk more about a lot of these CTE things with you when she comes to the school board at the end of the month, and she's bringing all of her folks with her. But you're going to see that some of these things are going to be, changed. If you can go to that first part or not. Is it not working?
I was trying to pull it up since.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. So, so this first part is just letting you know that we really did just change some department names, things that we used to call agriculture, food, and natural, or not, that one's a new one. Business management and administration is changed from business marketing computer. So we're just kind of updating things in some of these areas. So those are some things that were just big, broad changes that needed to happen. But we do have some new courses that have been added, some of them related to CTE, as some of them are related to other things. And I don't know, do you want to talk a little bit more about the process that you use to get courses into here?
Sure, yeah, I can briefly talk about that. We have a team of content lead teachers who oversee content areas. So they work with teachers in their content areas to talk about if there are additional courses that are needed to make sure that we're offering everything that we should be for our students. So those proposals come to me through the content lead teachers. And then I work with the curriculum instruction and assessment team to take a look through all of those proposals, make sure that we're aligning courses to standards, making sure that we have room in the budget and that it won't negatively impact another content area's programming. So we kind of vet through that process, and then we get to this point where we start looking at what we're going to add into the course catalog. And then once we finish here tonight, we start looking towards curriculum development and identifying teachers who can teach those courses and start developing the curriculum for those courses. So there's lots of behind the scenes work that goes into this.
I don't know if you want to scroll, Mr. Magus. Yep, so you're going to notice that we have some new courses that are really specific and tied into some CTE areas. We're trying to build our pathways. So we already had aerospace physics. And in order for that to be a pathway in the CTE world, we needed to have an introduction to aviation, aerospace, all those different pieces. So we're placing things in so that we have a more in-depth pathway. You're going to see some things that we're doing in partnerships as well. Our parenting, pregnant and parenting teens course is in partnership with
ECFE.
ECFE. I'm like, what department is that with? So it's kind of a blended course. It's going to be offered at through AEO. So some in person and some online, but it's going to be housed out of AEO's realm. This year, we also had piloted something called Unified Music at East High School, and that is where we're bringing our differently abled students together with more of our general student population. And we have had a unified PE program for several years, and this really is a kind of a Danette pet project. And so she said it's been incredible, and so she wanted to make sure that that got added into it because it has been fabulous. She says it's really heartwarming. If you ever need a pick-me-up, I've been told to go to East High School and go to a unified music class because it'll really pick you up a bit. You're going to see some new opportunities in here like forensic science. You're going to see introduction to law enforcement and community relations, fire science. We're cleaning up some things with construction and woodworking. I'm going to let Danette really express more to you at the end of the month about some of these CTE things, but just know that we are doing some really cool expanding, and some of our course offerings which are related in that CTE world are really building pathways for students. Some of our things that we have in here too, if you get down below the blue and you get to the green, we have some things where we're cleaning up things. And so sometimes it's just a matter of letting you know that, yep, we still have art across the mediums, but we're really just changing up the course description. That might be because we're using a different medium or different things that are coming into that. The standards might have changed just a little bit, and as we know that the art standards have. So there are going to be some cleanup in our course catalog. So we don't have all of the descriptions and stuff in here for you. Those will eventually be on the website, but just letting you know that some of our classes that we already have just end up having some course cleanup in there. We've also done some adjustments. So you'll see like the CITS intro into nursing. It's a course description update, and then it's also adjusting to match the college credit descriptions that we need to have as well. So it's just a lot of cleaning up that is in there. Let's see, is there anything in this area particular that we wanted to talk about? Oh, pathways to teaching. I did want to talk about pathways to teaching because I've heard a lot of talk about growing your own. We have had the Pathways to Teaching course in our course catalog for several years. This year we had really poor registration for it, and so we said we needed to take a year and determine how to best give a product out here. We're turning this into a pathway through our CT, not necessarily CTE, but our college and career pathways, and we've had some conversations with CSS, and it used to be like you had to take the whole year, and it was for college credit. We're breaking it up into 2 semesters. There's going to be a semester of it, which is the introduction piece, and then the second part of it, which will be the college credit piece of it. So we're hoping that we can engage more kids, and it might be an easier pick for kids to take if they know it's a semester, and then like they could do it here in this grade level, and they could do it again another grade level later. We're just breaking it up a little bit to try to make it more enticing to our students, and trying to grow our own, and yeah. So we are going to then let you know that we did delete a few courses, and some of it is just because of those adjustments that we've made with those pathways. We've made some changes. When you look at the sciences, our science standards had changed, and so 9th grade science has just been adjusted and changed. I am going to let you, though, talk about the exciting middle school, because I know you worked really hard on that one.
Yeah, so I think back in October, we were here talking about that. And I mentioned a little bit there, but I have worked with a subcommittee of middle school teachers and district staff as we're going through the process of revamping our middle school model, thinking about what courses we would like to offer at the middle level moving forward. And so what we did is we started off by really thinking about our priorities, and as a subcommittee, we talked about having student choice and exploration really being at the forefront of the decisions we made, and that came from the direct work that we did as a committee as a whole. And then we started to look at what other districts were doing for middle level courses, and started pulling some ideas from there. And once we felt like we had a good list to start with, we sent out a survey to our 8th grade students to get some student feedback on what they would like to see for courses, as well as also sending a survey to our middle school staff members to get their input as well.
And the 8th grade, just to kind of say, we said to the 8th graders, we know you're leaving middle school, but what would you have liked to have had? And it was more like, we didn't want to give a promise to some kids, like, oh, I picked all these things, this is what I'm going to have next year. We were like, 8th graders, tell us what you would have liked to have had. So that's where we got our feedback from them.
Good clarification,
Yep.
thank you. So then we took some time in December to really dig into that data that we got from students and staff members, and really wrestled with thinking about the choice and exploration, and came up with the list that you have up there, and that was shared with you in the agenda. We have made sure that the art standards will be in compliance next year. Those of you who have the background knowledge with the middle school model know that that was our main reason for having to change what was happening at the middle schools, because we didn't have the ability to be able to offer everything that we needed to within the arts standards. So we've made sure that we'll be in compliance with this set of courses, and we've also been able to add some really exciting elective courses, some exploratory courses where students kind of get a survey. There's an Exploring Robotics and Coding course and an Exploring Outdoor Education. Both of those, from the data from students and staff, we heard resoundingly that students wanted to see some more outdoor education. Staff wanted to see some outdoor education, as well as starting to think about what we're offering as far as coding and robotics to help our students at that level. I don't know if there's anything else you want to
I think the Skills for Success course is important to say. We really were thinking about, in our cornerstones that I had brought forth earlier when we talked about middle school model, we talked about how kids need to have that sense of belonging at the middle school. And we really were trying to set up a course that would set them up to be good middle school students for the rest of their career. So the Skills for Success class is really about study skills and literacy skills, some personal interest and career exploration. So it's a good, welcome to middle school and how to be a middle school student, which I think is a cool course. I also think that another thing just to kind of mention, as we kind of go down into some of the changes that you'll see in the more of the green, you're going to see that we used to have it with our 6 period day. We were not able to offer world language and music For our eighth graders, at eighth grade, unfortunately, our students had to make a choice which pathway they wanted to go down. We're breaking up world language, and I think that was a great thing that came out of your committee. The world language teacher even sat on there, and having a semester 1 and a semester 2 allows for kids even in 7th grade to access world language and be able to take one of the semesters there and one of the semesters in 8th grade and still be able to be in advanced band or advanced choir or whatever music program that they want to be part of. So we're increasing opportunities for those kids that have those desires there.
And no longer pitting programs.
Yeah, we're no longer pitting programs, which I think is really important. And then some of the other things, with our CTE pathways that we're really developing for high school, we really were trying to hone in on like how are we don't have CTE per se at the middle school level, but it's those introductory kind of things to get them ready for those pathways when they get to high school. And so we worked with Danette really closely on what can we put together so kids can try and explore a few things so that they're ready when they get to high school. So we deleted a bunch of classes that you'll see, but really what it is that we're taking and we're saying kids have the opportunities to try a couple different things instead of saying, okay, in 8th grade, your elective is in the FCS world, the FACS world, food and consumers, or family and consumer science. And then you're stuck in it all year long. Like we broke it up so they can try a little of this and they can try a little of that. And so that they're better prepared for making decisions when it comes to 9th grade registration. So those are some changes that were there. And yeah, I think that's pretty much where we are at. I don't know if we have any questions. I just kind of wanted to let you know how we kind of got to where we got to.
Student Representative Miller.
First, I would like to say I'm so excited for like the pathways thing because I've been like mentioning this in a lot of like meetings, just like students and my peers, how like I wish that I would have had that in middle school. And like for me, it was like either, I don't know, like 2 different options for electives, and it was something that I wasn't really interested in or I couldn't choose the other one. So I think that's very reasonable and I'm very excited for that. I saw the skills for success one. I think that is like a great option and I really appreciated that being on there. And then I think that like for the future, I think in high school that would be like a great program also. Because really like I think that I really started focusing on like pathways when like a student in the cities, I don't remember what school, they had like a whole pathways program for each student. They like chose like a career, and throughout the high school you can change interests and stuff. And I think that's something that Duluth should really get involved in because it's kind of like as a BIPOC student, sometimes you don't have like the expectations, So I think having that for all students is very reasonable. Also, I had a question about the pathways college credit. So for the pathways, it was a whole like school year to get the college credit. What college was that through?
That one's through St. Scholastica.
Okay. I was just, because typically, is it like 2 credits at the college
Oh,
then?
I don't know that one off the top of my head.
Okay.
I apologize for that, but it was credit that was being offered, and we'll still offer, I believe, the same amount of credit.
Okay.
It's just, it's for the semester. It would be more intense work around that. Yeah.
No, that just interested me because usually college is like goes by each semester.
Yeah.
And then also I had a question about like the PSEO credits. I'm gonna bring up something. So I just got an email that the St. Paul Public Schools has decided to let 3-credit college courses count towards a full year of high school graduation requirements. I just wanted to bring that up because I think that's like a huge thing. Yeah, I think that's like a great thing. And in that email, it's like People for PSEO. I don't know if you guys heard of that organization. They really focus on PSEO students getting like equity and all that stuff. So I wanted to mention that, especially since like the 4-credit classes, 4-to-1 ratio is pretty difficult and you have to take more classes. But I just wanted to mention that too.
Thank you for
Representative
that.
Miller.
That's good to know.
That's why you're here. Hearing student voices is exactly what was needed on this committee, so I'm glad you all are here and asking the really wonderful questions and bringing up things that we haven't thought about and perspectives we haven't thought about as a leadership team, so thank you. I'm not sure who was first, but I'm going to, I think it was member Mike Sell, then I'll go to student representative Padronis.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I super appreciate how you are reaching out to students and staff to get their input on all of these things. Having a middle schooler, I'm excited to see these updates and changes as they roll out. The Flex Time, Advisory, and Skills for Success courses, are those electives or are those going to be required? They seem like they would be something that would be good for everyone.
Yeah, those are all going to be required. But when we build a course catalog on our Infinite Campus system, it has to be put in. And so Flex Time will be built in and advisory will be built in, and they just get those. But we have to have the courses in our system. So yeah, they won't be choosing from those. Like when a kid goes and is making their choices, they'll be like, you're getting this class and this class and this. You can choose from this class or this class, you know, like, so they'll get what they need, what they're getting, and then they'll get what they can choose from.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I wanted to thank you for coming into the student government at East. I think a lot of my peers, I mean, I was lucky to be part of the discussion, but a lot of other student government members, I know they've left that conversation feeling like their opinions were really valued. So I really appreciate that. I wanted to say that I'm super impressed by all of the courses, especially at the middle school level. However, I'm wondering what sort of support will be given to middle schoolers in making decisions in what courses they want to pick, because I know even as a high schooler, it can be a little overwhelming with all of the electives and all these opportunities, which are so great, but it can kind of be a little overwhelming deciding what would be the best path to go on, especially being able to continue that into high school.
Excellent question. What happens every year is that our counselor who is going to be assigned to the sixth graders will go to the, and probably with a team because there's a lot of elementary schools, but they will go to the elementary schools and they'll have conversations with those fifth graders about their opportunities and options. In the past, sixth graders have only been able to choose music. So it's been like, which music do you want to take? And so now they're going to have to say, you're going to get this class, you're going to get these classes. You have a choice here of music, and then you also have this additional choice that you need to make. So they will go in and they will coach and work with the homeroom teacher who has those kids in fifth grade. When it moves into like a sixth grader who's already in sixth grade or a seventh grader moving up to the next level, that's kind of what we're going to have advisory for. They're going to be able to really sit down in their advisory groups and be able to say, okay, this is what you seem to be doing really well on. They're going to do academic checks with kids. They're going to do some social emotional stuff. They're going to do some climate building. But that piece of like advising kids on what they could do in their next pathway, I think is going to be really important for them. At the high school, they push down now into the eighth grade. So the high school counselors will come over and they will come into the eighth grade and they will have those conversations and highlight some of the things that'll be on opportunities for them and some of their pathways as well. So they push down into that level below them so that they can transition better. Yeah, you're welcome.
Member Lafleur Kemp.
Okay, great. Well, I really am glad that I'm following a couple of the students talking because they had great comments. And I was kind of on the same wavelength with Mia about what you were going to do to help students choose classes. But I also was wearing my parent hat and just wondering how we're going to get this information out to parents. I was one of those parents who loved getting the hard copy of the book, sat down with my kids, and we went through it. And at sometimes I was able to encourage them to take a class they did dream of, such as the aerospace physics class, which I see you're still doing. I remember my daughter was like, I don't want to take regular physics. I said, well, what about this aerospace? And she was like, Okay, and she took it, and that landed her a really great scholarship because she took it, and colleges were so impressed that we offered it. But anyways, back to my question is, how are we going to help parents kind of understand these classes so they can be sitting down with their kids as well, or guardians, to know kind of what these new course descriptions are and things like that?
So starting on Thursday, I am going to be starting to try to get into the middle schools. I know that Lincoln Park has their family night on Thursday night. And so Principal Kazimierczak and I are going to have a session where we're going to start talking about the middle school model. I also have time built into my day tomorrow with Adele so that we can start pushing out some messaging around some of these things. So I think that we've been doing all this work on the middle school model, and we're at the cusp, and it's like we have to start leaking out the message, I guess, as much as we possibly can, so that they can get as excited about it as I think we are. Like, we're really excited about this opportunity for kids, and so being able to share, like, how is this going to be experienced for your kids? What is advisory period? What is flex period? So that they can kind of start to see what all that is about and be communicating that. Some of the stuff with the high school, I do know that the counselors. We have a few things going on right now, like they're itching to start getting some messaging out and start rolling over so that we can start doing our registration period. And so I guess that'll be just more conversations that we'll have to have with our secondary during our instructional leadership team meetings that we do once a month. We'll really start to say, how are we going to promote this a little bit better, especially with the new changes that come out. What I do know is that as I have gone in, when the 9th grade comes down to 8th grade, I have gone and helped them because there's a lot of logging in and some of that kind of stuff. And what I have seen counselors do is highlight in front of those 8th graders, hey, these are some cool opportunities that you could have as kids and stuff. But as far as like with parents, I don't know that they're doing that as much. I know that they're really sharing with kids. I don't know if they're sharing with parents as much.
And I think that's going to be really, really critical, and we have some parents here who can also maybe speak for that, but particularly of the middle school parents, just from kind of over the years, and now with this wonderful change of not having that choice between music and language, like parents had been faced with or kids had been faced with. So I hope we can really ramp that up for the parent education piece. So thank you.
Chair Lofel.
Okay, and now I'm looking at this and I'm confused, but first of all, I would imagine that all of the opportunities we're presenting tonight in our course catalog depends on numbers, if whether or not it's really offered or not. It stays in our catalog, and it will probably in years, right? There will be, obviously, we're offering a lot of opportunity, but depending on where our middle schoolers or our high schoolers land, it is kind of like, okay, well, this will go through if we have X amount. I'm not going to ask you for the numbers. I know that it's early, and I know it's always, somewhat of a, you have to see what happens, how it registers. I know that in some cases, our staff is incredibly resourceful with helping our students register for courses. Over the years, I think different departments will take on a job of, okay, all of these new courses in our middle school are in the English area or something, so we're going to take time out of our English classes and go through these with our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. These are English classes. We can kind of elaborate on what they are and gain some interest and some clarification, probably. That would be great. I do wonder about where music lands in the middle school. Would we be fair in saying that we're going to hear from people that we're reducing opportunities for kids to take music, even though we know if you only have music to take and it's band, orchestra, or choir, that's all you. So with all these other, do you still have to have so many semesters or credits in music in the middle school?
So what we have to do is we
It
have
meets
to
the arts.
offer 3 art areas, and they are required to take 2. So we're going to be requiring visual arts in 6th grade and one of the performing musics in 6th grade. And one of their opportunities is for kids could be, I'm going to take either coding and robotics or outdoor education or media arts. So we offer those 3. Those would be the things that 6th graders could take, for example. As far as 7th graders, that's when we allow for that general music class that we had brought forth last year. Like, not all kids are interested in performing arts, performing music. So they're still going to have to take a music in 7th grade, but they will have that opportunity to take that general music instead of band or choir or orchestra. And then they have visual arts.
You can choose
They
between
choose visual arts or media arts in 7th grade. Then they have more of a choice there. And then in 8th grade, they have to choose 2 art areas. So they can choose from the 3 that we're currently offering. We haven't expanded to all 5 art areas yet in fine arts, but right now we're like, we have to see how the middle school model goes and see where kids, like how this is going to play out. But they can choose to do like visual arts and media arts and not have a music if they want to. Or if they're choosing music, they have to, that's going to end up taking a little bit more of their elective space. They have to choose another one, like either visual arts or media arts. So
Is communication arts an opportunity for an arts or not?
no, we're
It's in the
doing that
English.
through the ELA
Okay,
so that we
okay.
can get somebody
Certified.
Yeah, so it's the same speaking and reading.
Yeah, that's a great question. There was a strong desire when we looked at the data and from our subcommittee, teachers on the subcommittees, to have a course that really was a chance for students to be able to express themselves through poetry, speech, drama. But if we aligned it to the theater art standards, which is one of the arts, we would have to have a theater licensed teacher, which is very difficult to find, especially in our area. So what we chose to do, is we chose to align it to the listening, speaking, viewing, and exchanging ideas portion of the ELA standards, so that we could have an English teacher. And I was also going to add to that, during the process of putting together that list of courses, we had representation from the music department in on those decisions. And I also worked very closely with our content lead in music for secondary, as we were going through that process to make sure that we had those open lines of communication and that we were working together on the plan.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, because, people in our community really value music, whether it's orchestra, instrumental or vocal, and they're very supportive of our district, but they also will come forward when they feel like somehow we're not valuing that, so I'm glad to hear that. Skills for success in 6th grade, required? Okay, great. My experience sometimes is we as parents and as educators and as families and guardians, we all want that. I think we required it in 9th grade for a while at Denfeld, and it just was a struggle. But hopefully our 6th graders will have that energy that they usually have, and it will set them up on a path. That's great. One last,
I just was going to say, it's one way that we can start putting that career exploration, which we need to embed more career exploration as we move forward. And so it's one of our avenues that we're going to use for that career exploration piece.
that's a great, that little caveat is where, somehow we have to have that in the title or in the, when you say skills for success, kids think it's just going to be that study skill class again that tells them what they need to do. But my last question is just about unified music in the high school, and that's really exciting. I know that East's is very successful. So is that embedded in our special education department? Is that embedded in our music? Does it need co-opt teachers or the unified certificate? Because I know that's a process. So are we bringing that? I would imagine we're bringing it as an elective again for East and now Denfeld, because Denfeld hasn't had it?
We're hoping that there'll be interest at Denfeld. Again, it depends upon registration, but it's been a co-taught class. So there's a music teacher co-teaching with a sped teacher.
Student Representative Ritzko, and then Superintendent Magus.
So I was looking on the register for dropped courses for the middle school, and I saw that WIN was dropped. I personally like that decision, but I was wondering what you think, like why this would benefit middle school students.
Yeah, so the structure has changed completely around the day. So the middle school is moving to a 7-period day, 3 days of the week, and then more of longer blocks. So we're going to have block scheduling. So it's called a modified block. We'll have the skinny week days and then the longer block days. And so we're not having WIN every single day. We're having this flex period time, which it's really based on our middle school model. So teams of teachers are going to come together, interdisciplinary teams. So they will be working around the same group of kids. Like they should be like, these are the kids that we're working with, and what do they need? So it is like a WIN, but that's where the flex comes in. It might be intervention, it might be enrichment that's planned by these teams. So it's just a little bit of a different take on it, but it's not a daily WIN time. Really trying to embrace more of a middle school model, and this is kind of where we landed as a committee.
Is that only going to be for the middle school, or is it going to like eventually go into the high school?
So, you know, that's something that right now, all I can really talk about is the middle school, the plans that we have moving forward in middle school, because there's a lot of different things that the district's considering.
Great question, though.
It was a great question.
So Superintendent Magus, then Member Banks.
Yes, I will keep it brief because we have so many questions, but I just want to say how much I appreciate the hard work that has gone into this. Having been a director of secondary myself, knowing what it takes to put together the course catalog and knowing what it takes to do all the research and bring things before the board, thinking about all the standards, this represents an immense amount of work. And as I mentioned before, we're really working hard to revamp everything we're doing from pre-kindergarten through graduation and beyond. And so the work that is being done in curriculum is vast and appreciated. And I'll leave my comments there, except for Ms. Miller, our student representative. If you're interested in the Pathways program, that might mean that you might want to be an educator, which we would love. So let us know.
Okay.
Member Banks, then Member Banks, then Student Representative Miller.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I am not a Debbie Downer, so I'm going to preface it with that. However, I'd like to know, let me go back a little bit. With the onslaught of states across the country, 40 of them in particular, getting rid of African heritage education for our students, I'm wondering what you all are doing with regard to the curriculum as it relates to our African heritage influence on this country. Are there any courses going to be offered that would reflect that? If not, I would be very concerned about that because every student, not just Black students, need to have that experience. A lot of our students don't know or understand the importance of the African heritage community on this nation and what our community has done to make this nation what it is. And I'm very concerned if our school district doesn't have anything in the curriculum that would at least get at reflecting and teaching our kids about that. I would say we would have to go back and do something or do it over. So can you share with me and the rest of the folks in this room whether or not that is going to be a part of the curriculum?
So I think you're closest to what work is being done with the standards. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that's a great point, and I appreciate you bringing that up. That is an area, I think, as a district, that we have a great amount of room for improvement, and I'll be the first one to say that. We are looking at the new social studies standards, which will go into effect in a couple of years here, and within those standards, now that they've been approved by the state, there will be specific standards aligned K through 12 to ethnic studies and social justice. I've already started working with our content leads for social studies to start thinking about what that's going to look like so that we're very intentional on embedding that. I think a big piece that goes along with that is the professional development piece for teachers. So that's something that I've started doing this year with our content lead teachers, is taking time to really talk about culturally responsive curriculum and education so that we can start that learning now, so that as we're developing the curriculum, we can support our teachers in making sure that they know how to be able to have those tougher conversations with students. And so that started. On this list, there isn't something, but there are active plans happening so that we can make sure that we are taking on the efforts that need to happen.
And you're saying it's about 2 years away, is what you're saying?
Next
that?
year's science, the year, so that's, help me with the math, it's not next year or the year after, it's the following year.
So 3 years away, basically.
That
So
doesn't mean that we're not going to start putting things in now that they've been approved. That's
Okay.
when our implementation has to start happening. That's their cycle. But we were really waiting for that approval so that we could move forward, knowing what we needed to do. And I know that there's a couple of tweaks that needed to still be still needed to be addressed. But
yeah, we do not want to become what those other 40 states have
No.
become. Minnesota's a bit different, and we need to reflect that because demographics are changing all over Minnesota, including Duluth. So, thank you.
I'm working with Nate Smith on the Equity Framework Task Force. And so I'm hoping through that work as well, that we can also start having similar conversations.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Student Representative Miller and then Member Loeffler-Kemp.
My question was like basically very similar. I was questioning about the ethnic studies that just got passed this year. In Minnesota Youth Council, my friend was very involved with that. I also want to say that there is a ethnic studies working group. The applications closed on March 22nd, 2024. Seeking teachers with experience teaching, parents or guardians, and also high school students and teachers. So that's something that I want to state. So I'm very curious on what we will do and how it will be brought up. Also, who specifically will be putting this into like the curriculum?
Sure. So as far as the working group, I actually shared that with our content lead teachers to be able to share with other teachers who might be interested or if they themselves are interested. I think as far as the if we're looking at social studies specifically, our content lead there is Susan Schmitz, who is a social studies teacher at East High School, so I work closely with her. We also have a lead teacher in the elementary, Jenna Amundsen, who I work closely with as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Member Loeffler-Kemp.
Yeah, thank you. I want to just also say, I really have appreciated hearing the many ways you've been involving our staff in this process. And even with the topic that was just brought up, I mean, I know we can improve, but I also am well aware as a parent that we have staff that in many different ways really enrich the curriculum already. Around diversity and inclusion, and I know that we can expand on that. I do appreciate, though, how much you've involved, particularly our leadership, our staff leaders. The other question I had is the course catalog itself. When do can you kind of work backwards on when you hope it gets in the hands of students and families? Because that's going to be a question I know as a school board member I will be getting. When's registration at middle school and at the high school level, and like tentative?
Negotiations are impacting this.
Okay. So when that wraps up, then okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see.
Me.
Oh, Chair
Well,
Loeffler.
just, again, the comment that Student Representative Miller shares too is I got the same email about the professional development opportunities around cultural awareness and about our ethnic studies. And those are ongoing, and our teachers are able to, take those. A lot of them are done asynchronously, and there's scholarships and district funds that help teachers allocate that, and we have a great staff that goes beyond what we are asking them when they see professional development in the area of cultural studies. I wonder when is ethnic studies a legislative requirement in 2027? Is it the same time we're rolling out the new social studies standards?
Yes, it's the
Okay,
same year that we're
okay.
rolling out the new social studies standards. There are some parts and pieces that go into that. That doesn't necessarily mean that that will be a social studies course.
Right.
But it'll go into effect that year. And we're just starting preliminary conversations about what that might look like, because the working group has to do that work first to come up with what a framework will look like. So I'm watching that closely to see, as that working group does their work, what that framework will look like and how we can best embed that into our curriculum as a district.
And our curriculum department and our teachers and our staff have always, have embraced a lot of opportunity to bring in voices from our more marginalized communities, whether that's authors and poets in an English class or inventors and scientists in science and invention classes. I mean, we're doing some things, and like everyone has said, we continue to have to, continue to lift up and to learn and to offer opportunities. And I think that some of it is because the social studies standards are rolling out, and there's a lot of you want to make sure you know what those standards are before materials and curriculum and decisions and requirements are going to be used when it's going to impact us in 2 years. So we're moving there, and we can still continue to work.
Yeah, it's something I did put into place. It's been 2.5 years now when I first came in, and my counterpart then, Anna Kakut, we put into the curriculum adoption plan a component where committees have to use an equity, diversity, and inclusion rubric as they're adopting materials and developing curriculum, so that we are being more intentional. So there are those parts and pieces. It's by no means where we want to be, but we're taking those steps to be able to make sure that we're being more inclusive and equitable in our curriculum.
Thank you. And I also wanted to point out that, as Mr. Uzma was just sharing, we have started things already. I mean, that's why we have advancing equity as one of our pillars within our strategic plan. As you know, having joined the district 4 years ago, we have we are very intentional on making sure that all of our leaders are equity-minded in what they do. That's why all of our leaders, including leaders here, participated in that CEL training, the Center for Educational Leadership, that has an equity focus. That the first part of the CEL training was all about equity-minded leadership, and all of our leaders participated in that training because we are encouraging and fostering that kind of mindset with our leaders. So keep asking those great questions, students. Please do. Board members continue to ask great questions too, and push us and encourage us as well to, meet those aspirations that we've laid out. So think about the presentations you heard tonight from Mr. Smith and others over the last few months around advancing equity. As a district, we are making strides, and we are committed to improving all students' outcomes, and especially those who have been marginalized and furthest away from justice. So continue to, ask those great questions and hold our feet to the fire, because we're striving for it, and we have to keep being pushed.
And I kind of knew that this was going on already, but I wanted to hear it again because it really sounds good. It's important for our community to know that this is the direction that the school district is going in, and hopefully we have that support outside of the school district as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, one last thing while we have Jen and Dale here is, it might be the next time you come or in the future. I remember when I was a new board member, we had the curriculum folks at the time just talk about the state standards, and just so as a board member and with our student reps, kind of better understanding what it means to have social studies standards and the arts and kind of that whole process, and how much we often have had our own staff from this district involved at state level committees with MDEs. So that might be a good educational piece. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all your hard work.
I'd just like to close too by, will you please thank your content specialists that come in? These are full-time teachers in our district that have taken on an extra role of being a curriculum content teacher. I did it for a few years when I was at Denfeld, and it's a lot of work, and it's intense. They just do a lot of things, and every time you mention that, the content specialist is working, and those are teachers that are already working full-time, and they take on another layer of content specialists. So I appreciate them as well and know the work. So thank them, please.
Thank you, everyone. That concludes our meeting.
We don't adjourn these meetings, so have a good night. Thank you.